Chapter 349. Cheng Wenkai, who was angry and ashamed, never thought that if he won the bet, would he let go of Yang Chen and Gao Yu easily. At this time, how could he put himself in their shoes? He only knew that he had been insulted and must be washed away with the other party's life. Yang Chen and Gao Yu did not expect things to develop to this point. Although Yang Chen hated Cheng Wenkai, as long as Cheng Wenkai was willing to kowtow to his master and admit his mistake, Yang Chen would not let him go too far, and would not let him be embarrassed in front of the eyes of the public. However, the current situation was also very in line with Yang Chen's appetite. People like Cheng Wenkai had to be taught such a lesson, otherwise he would not have a long memory. On the site of Meiqing Mountain Chunyang Palace, suddenly a lot of fellow Taoists from all walks of life came, so that Chunyang Palace was busy receiving them. Among these people who came, there were even several Yuanying stage masters of the sects, and even the head of the sect had to come forward when needed. Under the guise of everyone, they all wanted to see the disciples of the greatest heaven sect come to cash the bet. However, between the conversations, they were all asking about the heaven-seizing pill. Before Elder Wu Xiong had not yet ascended, with the cover of his old man, even if everyone had the intention, they did not dare to take action. In addition, no one knew the effect of the heaven-seizing pill, it was just refined, who knew if it would work or not. However, the vision when Elder Wu Xiong ascended made everyone amazed at the power of the heaven-seizing pill. Without the care of Elder Wu, everyone's courage grew. Not to mention that there were masters of the Dashang stage in the sects, even the sects that did not have masters of the Dashang stage at all, some people also had ideas. Not to mention other things, even the Taishanmen seemed to be quite tempted by the heaven-seizing pill. Some elders suggested that Cheng Wenkai should honor the bet with a sincere attitude in order to win the favor of Chunyang Palace and Yang Chen. Cheng Wenkai came to kowtow awkwardly this time partly because of the pressure from the higher-ups in the sect. However, now Chunyang Palace was also a sect with a master of the Dashang stage. In any case, they shared the same hatred with other Taoist sects in the calamity of the demonic arts. Although they had the smallest loss and the biggest gain, they were still Taoist sects after all. Some means could not be used blatantly, and could only be used in this roundabout way. When Cheng Wenkai arrived at Chunyang Palace, he found that no less than 1,000 influential people had gathered in Chunyang Palace, waiting for him to honor his bet. After realizing this, Cheng Wen really spat out a mouthful of blood. With this kowtow, he would no longer have any prestige or status among cultivators. Originally, things could be done in a perfunctory manner, but with so many influential people, there was no way to make things simple. Although so many people gathered here, they were not here to see Cheng Wenkai kowtow, but everyone's pretense made it difficult for Chunyang Palace. They had no choice but to choose a large enough area and set up a high platform to settle these people down. It was just that the scale was not small in any case. Is this okay? Gao Yu looked at so many people and seemed to be a little timid. She was not the person in her previous life who could fall out with the Taishanmen for her apprentice. Suddenly facing so many big figures, she was still a little nervous. What's wrong with it? Yang Chen didn't care at all. It was okay to make a small fuss. It was the same with great fanfare. Anyway, his side was not in the wrong. In terms of emotion and reason, we have no mistakes. What are you afraid of? That was what he said, but everyone knew in their hearts that maybe after Cheng Wenkai kowtowed, someone would immediately take the opportunity to talk about the heaven-seizing pill. If they talk about the heaven-seizing pill, what should we do? Gao Yu was worried about this. She was afraid that Yang Chen would have any trouble, so she asked anxiously, "If you want the heaven-seizing pill, find all the materials, find all the alchemy masters, and refine it for him." Yang Chen replied with a smile, "If you want the heaven-seizing pill, there is no need to offend the alchemy masters, right? What do you think, master?" This made sense, and Gao Yu also settled her heart. Yang Chen said this, and it seemed that there was really nothing to worry about. Gao Yu was also a little worried and a little not calm enough. When Yang Chen and Gao Yu appeared together in the center of the venue, Cheng Wenkai was already waiting there. Seeing Yang Chen and Gao Yu coming over, Cheng Wenkai's bloodshot eyes almost spurted out fire. Yang Chen and Gao Yu were deliberately insulting him. This hatred must be avenged. Fellow Taoist Cheng, You have to admit defeat. Walking to the center, Xianxian did not care about Cheng Wencai's livid face and fiery eyes, and said calmly, I don't know if fellow Daoist Cheng still recognizes the bet between us. They do. Cheng Wencai wanted to deny it, but someone had to agree. On this occasion he could only answer with gritted teeth. Good, fellow Daoist Cheng is indeed upright, just admit it. Xianxian chuckled, fellow Daoist Cheng made a bet with me. As long as I can touch a hair of old Demon Lin, it will be considered that you have lost. I have many people to testify that I have already touched old Demon Lin's hair. This bet is Senior Cheng's loss. Senior Cheng, this junior will wait here for Senior to honor the bet. Cheng Wencai stared at Xianxian with blood-red eyes for a long time. Then he snorted coldly with incomparable hatred and was about to kneel on the ground and kowtow. But before he could do anything, he was stopped by Xianxian in time. Wait! Xianxian said quickly. Cheng Wencai froze on the spot just as he was about to kneel, and his resentful gaze immediately looked over. When Junior made the bet with Senior, Junior's master was included in the bet. Xianxian smiled, not caring about Cheng Wencai's resentful gaze at all. Don't forget about my master, lest Senior has to kowtow again later. Also, remember to admit your mistake. At that time, the bet was for both parties to kowtow and admit their mistake, but Xianxian was reminding Cheng Wencai. Cheng Wencai's teeth were already chattering, and his fists were clenched tightly with blue veins popping out, but he could not say a word. He could only watch angrily as Xianxian invited Gao Yu over, and then the two of them sat side by side. What Cheng Wencai could not bear the most was that Xianxian even made a gesture to start. This was simply a face-to-face humiliation. If he could bear it, what else could he not? But Cheng Wencai had to bear it. Among the guests present, there was no one he could afford to offend, and this did not include some of the elders in the sect. No matter how angry Cheng Wencai was, he did not dare to offend so many people at once. With a thud, Cheng Wencai pushed the golden mountain and jade pillar and knelt on the ground. He kowtowed heavily to Xianxian and Gao Yu. He said loudly, fellow Daoist Gao, fellow Daoist Yang, I was wrong. Chapter 350. Sure enough, you are a disciple of a big sect. You are a man of your word. Cheng Wencai kowtowed and opened his mouth. Xianxian immediately stood up and sent a series of compliments to his face. The other party had already kowtowed. Of course, he had to say enough good words. However, no matter how many of these words were said, Cheng Wencai could not wash away the humiliation. Even the more these words were said, the deeper Cheng Wencai's resentment was. But what made Cheng Wencai vomit blood was that this was not said by Xianxian alone. Almost all the leading figures around him said so. This was simply a crazy sprinkling of salt on Cheng Wencai's seriously injured wound, making him feel more pain. Puff, Cheng Wencai finally couldn't hold his breath. A mouthful of blood spurted out of his mouth, and he fainted directly on the spot. There were already Taishanmen's disciples waiting on the side. They hurriedly carried Cheng Wencai down and hurriedly treated him. This old man has a medicinal pill here. It is just right for Daoist Cheng's situation at the moment. A big shot on the high platform on the side spoke immediately, and then a medicinal pill flew accurately to Cheng Wencai's mouth as if it was pulled by an invisible line. The disciple next to him hurriedly massaged Cheng Wencai and helped him take it. Speaking of this medicinal pill, this old man has a question. After the big shot who delivered the medicine did all this, he immediately changed the topic to the medicinal pill. A few days ago, Elder Wu ascended. It is said that he used the heaven-seizing pill. Daoist Yang, you have participated in the refining of the heaven-seizing pill. Can you give me some advice? This topic was changed so fast that even the head of the palace and the elders of Chunyang Palace did not have time to speak, and the topic had already been turned directly to Xianxian. All the high-level officials of Chunyang Palace were complaining in their hearts. This younger generation junior was lucky. Xianxian had already expected it. I was just fortunate to participate and did some refining of medicinal materials. I dare not say anything. If this younger generation junior has any requirements, just tell me. As long as this younger generation junior can do it, I will never refuse. Xianxian answered happily, but it also made a group of people secretly happy. Although the old man didn't use the carefully prepared words, but seeing Yang Chen's straightforwardness, he couldn't help but be overjoyed and hurriedly asked, "Is there any secret method to refine the heaven-seizing pill?" The moment he opened his mouth, he brought up the secret refining method. The surrounding people couldn't help but curse in their hearts. Even if he was anxious, he couldn't be this anxious. He didn't even care about his table manners. However, his question was what everyone was thinking. No one picked on the old man's choice of words. Everyone just stared at Yang Chen, waiting for his answer. The fervent gazes of thousands of people, and the worst among them was an expert at the peak of Jindan stage, could melt even the iron in the center of the field. However, Yang Chen did not panic, as if he did not notice this silent pressure at all. He took a step forward and was about to speak when he suddenly heard a cough. Cough! The palace master of Chunyang Palace coughed and said to the crowd, "Everyone, fellow Daoist Cheng of Taishanmen has honored the bet. Please go to the guest house to have tea." It was the palace master who deliberately changed the topic. What a joke, even the people of Chunyang Palace have not asked Yang Chen about the secret refining method. You have nothing to do with it? How can you know? Palace master, you don't have to be so polite. Immediately, someone laughed and took over the conversation. There is nothing to do. It just so happens that everyone is here to talk about the old days and listen to the story of fellow Daoist Yang, but I dare not bother the palace master. As soon as this person opened his mouth, there was a sound of agreement. Everyone spoke politely, but they also expressed an attitude that they would not let this matter rest. Although they were all Dao sects, who made the heaven-seizing pill so coveted. An ordinary man is innocent, but treasuring a jade ring becomes a crime. The secret recipe for the heaven-seizing pill is this jade ring. If everyone was in a hurry, they could only tear their faces. The palace master was anxious. He knew the meaning of these people, but if Yang Chen was forced to tell the secret of the heaven-seizing pill in the territory of Chunyang Palace, then what face would Chunyang Palace have? If they couldn't even protect their own disciples, how could they set up a sect? Just as the palace master and several elders looked at each other and silently discussed countermeasures, Yang Chen had already opened his mouth. "I want to let the seniors know that the pill recipe of this heaven-seizing pill was originally found by Elder Wu Xiong." As soon as Yang Chen opened his mouth, everyone's attention was focused on him. The palace master still wanted to say something, but when he saw the smile on Yang Chen's face, he didn't know why, but his heart suddenly settled and he was no longer worried. Yang Chen was so confident that he could definitely solve the problem. However, this pill recipe is incomplete. When Yang Chen opened his mouth, everyone pricked up their ears, for fear of missing a word. There are only the medicinal materials used and the refining method of the first half of the pill recipe. The later refining method is not recorded at all. Yang Chen then said, "At that time, the specific refining method was discussed by Senior Deng Ya, Senior Helian Yun and Senior Zhu Peng, plus Senior Fan Shan and Elder Wu. This younger generation junior's cultivation base is insufficient and my knowledge is limited. I just participated in the refining of medicinal materials and did not participate in the subsequent refining." Yang Chen always had a smile on his face and said calmly, "To be honest, this younger generation junior also wants to know the refining method. If the seniors can collect the medicinal materials, this younger generation junior is willing to participate in the refining again. However, the seniors have to find Senior Deng, Senior Helian and Senior Zhu first. This younger generation junior really doesn't know how to refine. I heard that the last crucial step was completed by fellow Daoist Yang. Why is that?" Some people believed this, but some didn't believe it, so someone immediately asked. This junior only refined a pill that could restore the pill spirit in the end. If the previous seniors failed in their refining, this junior would not have been able to do anything. Yang Chen explained with a smile. Everyone now knew whether this was true or false. In fact, after Wu Xiong ascended, the detailed process of refining the pill had been leaked. Except for the refining method, all the other details were available. It was unknown whether it was the few people who refined the pill at the time who leaked it or Wu Xiong's servant, but anyway, everyone knew about it. Yang Chen's words were not inconsistent with the facts, but the crowd didn't want to let it go. They came here to force Yang Chen to reveal the secret he knew. How could they easily back down? I don't know if fellow Taoist Yang's pill recipe for restoring the pill spirit. Can you give me some pointers? Someone immediately made such a request with a calm face. Yang Chen did not hesitate to say the words, but everyone was shocked. This was still without any means, and it was done? Even the head of the palace didn't know what medicine Yang Chen was selling in his gourd. If the seniors just want the medicinal pill, find all the materials, this younger generation junior can help you refine it. Yang Chen still smiled and said, if you want the pill recipe, it's not impossible. Everyone looked at Yang Chen eagerly, waiting for him to say what he wanted. All the seniors are reasonable people. If you want something, then take something similar to it. Yang Chen smiled and said, it's a fair trade, and there's no deceit. Chapter 351. Boom! Yang Chen's words immediately caused a burst of discussion. Such an important pill recipe could actually be exchanged? If it was said that Yang Chen could refine it, this was not unusual. Yang Chen was an alchemy master inside and outside. The alchemy master charged a certain price for alchemy. This was the practice in the cultivation world, but it was not necessarily guaranteed the success rate and how much the price was paid. To put it bluntly, it was the alchemy master who used other people's materials to practice their own alchemy techniques and could also earn the cost of alchemy. This was not unusual, almost every alchemy master did this. Let the alchemy master collect the materials and then refine the alchemy. The time to collect the materials was enough to consume the alchemy master's life. However, no matter where the pill recipe was placed, which sect, which alchemy master, it was a secret thing and would never be leaked because of alchemy. The more important the pill recipe, the more so. Yang Chen actually said that he wanted to sell the pill recipe, which surprised everyone. This was a component of the heaven-seizing pill. How could it be sold so easily? For those who had the idea of the pill recipe, this was good news. You don't have to tear your face with Chunyang Palace, nor do you have to kill people. As long as you pay a price, you can get it. The question was, what kind of price did such a precious pill recipe need to be paid? If you look for this younger generation junior to refine pills, as long as you prepare the main materials, this younger generation junior will solve the auxiliary materials by himself. Yang Chen waited for everyone to digest the news, and then he unhurriedly opened his own conditions. This younger generation junior does not want much remuneration, 2 kinds of first-grade fire seeds, or a kind of second-grade fire seed. The first-grade fire seed and the second-grade fire seed were not advanced things, and it was relatively easy to obtain. The earth core fire on Yang Chen's body was a third-grade fire seed, which was not too powerful, but it was relatively difficult to obtain. As for the Sun True Fire, Nanming Li Fire and other more advanced fire seeds, it was almost impossible to find. The reason why so many low-level fire seeds were needed was for the needs of the profound spirit furnace. The profound spirit furnace could not be upgraded by relying on advanced fire seeds. The more fire seeds collected, the more advanced the profound spirit furnace could be. Low-level fire seeds were easy to obtain, and Yang Chen would not let go of this opportunity. What's the main material? Someone asked immediately. This was a price that any of the people present could afford. Even if it was inconvenient, it was just a matter of going out for a walk. It was very easy. What kind of pill spirit does senior need to use? Just use the powder of the pill spirit. Yang Chen quickly replied, not too much, 1 or 2 is enough. In the beginning, when Yang Chen said that he wanted an inner core, many people's expressions immediately changed. However, when they heard that he only wanted 1 or 2 inner cores, everyone began to feel relieved. Since he didn't want all the inner cores, it was easy to negotiate. However, there were more people who were interested in the pill recipe. They immediately asked, if you want the pill recipe, what price do you have to pay? It's simple. Yang Chen smiled and stretched out a finger. A third-grade fire seed can be exchanged for a pill recipe. If there is a more advanced fire seed, it can be exchanged for more pill recipes according to the recognized exchange ratio. A third-grade fire seed, for the people present, was not a big problem, But the problem was that Xianxian gave away the pill recipe so cheaply and also killed the third-grade fire seed in exchange for a pill recipe. Could it be that there was more than one pill recipe? What do you mean? Is there more than one pill recipe? The person who cared about the pill recipe was more anxious, and regardless of his identity, he blurted out. As soon as the question came out, everyone's eyes suddenly focused on Xianxian. Senior, the pill spirit used by the heaven-seizing pill does not require which one it is, as long as the cultivation base is enough. Xianxian smiled and then explained. However, sometimes different pill spirits contain different auras, so the recipe and technique of the heaven-seizing pill itself also need a little adjustment. This junior doesn't know the pill recipe and technique of the heaven-seizing pill, but in terms of restoring the pill spirit, it is the same. Some pill spirits are poisonous, and of course, the Niden contains highly toxic poison. This needs to be neutralized first. Otherwise, if it is added to the heaven-seizing pill, it will not be a heaven-seizing pill, but a life-seizing pill. In the face of so many greedy eyes, Xianxian's face did not have a trace of tension. Some are cold, some are hot, and so on. It depends on different pill spirits. In addition, the last time I refined the heaven-seizing pill, it was because the pill spirit was exhausted, which led to the weakness of the pill spirit. There are many ways to cause weakness. It may be injury, it may be illness, it may be poisoning, it may be congenital deficiencies. At this point, Xianxian didn't care about the faces of those people. Different methods, the techniques and materials required are not the same. So, in theory, the pill recipe to restore the pill spirit, how many combinations there are, this junior is not very clear. Xianxian spread his hands. As far as this junior knows, there are only less than 1,000 kinds. If any senior is interested, you can also exchange all of them. In any case, it's just a 7th grade flame. Xianxian said it was really easy. A 7th grade flame was enough. Yes, according to the degree of preciousness, a 7th grade flame was enough to match 1,000 3rd grade flames. But the problem was the 7th grade flame so easy to get? Even the level of Sun True Fire and Lunar True Fire was only in the 6th grade. If you want a 7th grade fire seed, only the pure Yang True Fire preserved in Chunyang Palace for generations was enough for this level. This exchange, as long as it was not a mental illness, they would not agree. It was reasonable to exchange a 3rd grade fire seed for one, but it was estimated that it was only for a certain kind of pill spirit, and it was still a fixed way to weaken. When they thought of this, everyone felt that it seemed that they had been fooled by Xianxian. In contrast to the group of people who were looking at each other, the face of the head of the palace in Chunyang Palace showed a smile. Xianxian's move was not bloodshed, but it made the people who wanted to get the pill recipe helpless. It was really brilliant. Xianxian's disciple at a young age was smooth and slick. Under such circumstances, if someone wanted to force it, they would be the enemy of Chunyang Palace. Although Chunyang Palace was a second-rate sect, it was also a second-rate sect with a master of the Dashang stage, and it was not necessarily afraid of anyone. Can you buy it on credit? In the crowd, there was a gloomy voice, full of threat. Of course. Xianxian turned in the direction of the voice and replied with a smile on his face. If you want to buy it on credit, you can buy it on credit, as long as you pay the bill when the time comes. Otherwise, this junior can't guarantee that it is not a seemingly insignificant medicinal material. The heaven-seizing pill will become a life-seizing pill. Chapter 352. Although Xianxian's answer was with a smile, it was a heavy counterattack to the threatening voice, and it was also a warning to the guys who had crooked ideas. If they did not follow Xianxian's way, then the pill recipe would not be complete. In this world, people who could extort confessions from Xianxian would not appear. Xianxian could endure the crippled immortal absolute devil hand of the heavenly court for thousands of years. What punishment was more unbearable than this? As for the guy who wanted to hit Xianxian through Wan Qian's way, Xianxian would not care. Wan Qian was in front of the car in front. Xianxian even hoped that there would be more such people. Maybe he could mix in a few puppets of the Yuanying stage and the Dashang stage, which was much more powerful than the formation formed by Wan Qian's 5 apprentices. This was still Xianxian alone, and it had not taken into account the Chunyang Palace standing behind Yangqin. There was almost no need to ask, such a disciple who could bring great benefits to the sect, if Chunyang Palace did not protect him, it would be a ghost. People who had crooked ideas must also consider the serious consequences of doing so. Of course, if the predecessor really wants to renege on the debt, this younger generation junior doesn't mind using the complete pill recipe to exchange for the predecessor's head with some masters. This was not the end. When Yangqin said this, everyone was really dead. Getting an incomplete pill recipe, not only would they have to face the revenge of Chunyang Palace, but they also had to guard against some masters who could appear and disappear at any time to remove their heads. It was not worth paying such a price for a pill recipe that was not the heaven-seizing pill. Anyway, if they wanted to restore the pill spirit, as long as they found the main material, they could ask Yangqin to help refine it with a second-grade fire seed. Why use this kind of crooked idea? What's more, if they got the pill recipe, if they were not an alchemist master, wouldn't they have to find an alchemist master to refine it? Why not use Yangqin, a ready-made and experienced one? Weighing the pros and cons, everyone almost made a choice in an instant. Even if there was someone else who wanted to try their luck, they wouldn't show it in this situation. A possible farce of forcing the emperor to abdicate was now easily resolved by Yangqin in this way. The scene was harmonious, and the guests and the host were happy. Since everyone had an idea, they did not dwell on this issue. Anyway, they still needed the heaven-seizing pill for a long time, and it was hard to say if they could find all the materials, so there was no need to reveal their intentions so early. The topic immediately shifted back to Cheng Wenkai. Some people were bored and began to comment on the success and failure of Cheng Wencai's provocative bet. Cheng Wenkai, who had just been saved by a few disciples, vomited blood on the spot when he heard these words. The disciples didn't dare to stay here any longer and hurriedly left with their master. What a joke! If he stayed any longer, how much blood would Cheng Wenkai have left in his body for him to spurt out like this? Some people quickly heard some content from Yangqin's words. The pill recipe of heaven-seizing pill did not require which kind of pill spirit was used. However, in actual refining, it should be treated differently according to different pill spirits. This was very important. It was simply impossible to completely use a kind of pill spirit. It must be known that pill spirit was the spirit of a Dashang stage monster beast. It was already difficult to find a Dashang stage monster beast. If you want to find a second one, it was dozens of times more difficult than looking for a needle in a haystack. At least if you look for a needle in a haystack, there was still a needle in the haystack. It was hard to say if there was a second Dashang stage monster beast. The reason why it was difficult to refine the heaven-seizing pill before was only the founder of the heaven-seizing pill, Xianxia, the head of the Xiang family, and elder Wu Xiong not long ago. Everyone else who had tried it had all ended up in failure. Now it seemed that it was not how difficult the materials of the heaven-seizing pill were to collect, nor was it how difficult the refining technique was. It was likely that there was a problem with the pill recipe of the heaven-seizing pill from the beginning, and it did not take into account this different situation. Although the details of Deng Ya, Zhu Peng and He Lianyun's refining were not known to everyone, the reason for their initial failure was by no means because of their low level. It should be precisely because they did not consider this issue thoroughly. In this case, the medicine that Yangqin added later to restore the pill spirit was the key. It must be a complete consideration of the treatment of different pill spirits, which led to the resurrection of the failed heaven-seizing pill. It must be known that in the beginning, the heaven-seizing pill had almost been refined into slag. Some people looked at Yangqin's eyes immediately had a different look. More people began to speculate that the reason why Chunyang Palace established a hall of eccentrics like this was it a good idea for a long time to hoard pill spirits for the future heaven-seizing pill? The monster of the Dashang stage was too rare, but it couldn't stand the cultivation of the sect. Wasn't there already a Dashang stage master of the hall of eccentrics in Chunyang Palace? As soon as they got this inference, some people could no longer sit still and immediately got up to leave. The hurried figure caused many people to look at each other in dismay. They didn't know what this companion who had come with them meant. But soon, more and more people considered various possibilities and began to bid farewell to the pure Yang Palace one after another. In a short period of half a day, thousands of guests left, and there was no outsider. Of course, the master of the palace also considered such a situation and frowned. Zhanxian didn't say anything. He directly pulled Gao Yu and the master ancestor straight to the place where the three monsters of the Hall of Eccentrics were. "Don't you owe us an explanation?" Shi Kuei and Xia may have reacted a little slower, but others could think of this. How could the old tree demon Gui Shanyu not think of it? Sitting in the room, waiting for Zhanxian, he asked with a smile. "What is there to explain?" Zhanxian indifferently stepped forward and sat on the chair. "There is more than one kind of heaven-seizing pill to ascend in the day. It is not worthwhile to use this kind of method that is detrimental to one's virtue." As he spoke, Zhanxian put the old tree demon into the medicine garden, and then immediately released him. The old tree demon only felt a blur in front of him, and immediately saw a forest of Penglai divine wood. Each tree was long and thick. The pure aura of the divine wood made the old tree demon stunned on the spot, and then he was immediately moved out by Zhanxian. "My master ancestor has already got a Qilin horn. After refining the flying sword, do you think you still need the help of the heaven-seizing pill to ascend?" In order to appease the old tree demon, Zhanxian, of course, had to appropriately disclose some secrets to Gui Shanyu. Besides, Elder Wu Xiong did not use the heaven-seizing pill. What is there to make a fuss about? From seeing the forest of Penglai divine wood, plus seeing the Qilin horn that Wang Yong took out, the old tree demon still did not believe it, and waited for the time to laugh. It is this old man who worries too much. The old tree demon was also a person who could take it up and put it down, and immediately admitted his mistake. The heart of a villain, this old man admits his mistake. Without waiting for everyone to say anything, the old tree demon had already stated on the spot, "Rest assured, the Hall of Eccentrics will be taken care of by this old man. However, this old man's ascension will have to be taken care of by Zhanxian." As soon as these words came out, Wang Yong was shocked again. Chapter 353. Before waiting for others to react, Zhanxian had already appeased the old tree demon of the Deshang stage? And what did Gui Shanyu just say? His ascension was entrusted to Zhanxian? Although Zhanxian gave Wang Yong a heaven-seizing pill, this kind of thing, of course, could not be asked for. How could a large number of them be given to people? However, Zhanxian was a disciple of the foundation stage. The old tree demon actually wanted to rely on him to ascend? This was a bit scary. Although Zhanxian refreshed the lower limit of their endurance again and again, when a real master of the Deshang stage spoke so seriously, they were still scared. What did Zhanxian show to Gui Shanyu that made the old tree demon of the Deshang stage so sure that Zhanxian would help him ascend? Fortunately, although the two were curious, they did not ask. Zhanxian, this disciple, had too many secrets, so many that they sometimes did not dare to know. The head of the palace had a lot of things to do. When he was busy welcoming the guests and hurried to the old tree demon's side, what he saw was a harmonious scene. "The palace master doesn't have to worry about us." Gui Shanyu stroked his not very long beard and said with a smile, "That kind of clumsy means, I believe that Chunyang Palace will never use it." Listening to this sentence of the old tree demon, the palace master breathed a long sigh of relief. It was not easy to win over a master of the Deshang stage. If because of this speculation, it would lead to the disloyalty of several masters in the Hall of Eccentrics, it would not be worth it. Now that the old tree demon said this, it also made the palace master feel relieved. Looking at the presence of Zhanxian, Gao Yu, and Wang Yong, the palace master did not need to ask to know that this must be related to Zhanxian. Although he did not know how Zhanxian said it to the old tree demon, it was obvious that there was no trust crisis now. This opportunity not only allowed Cheng Wenkai to fulfill his bet, but also quelled a hidden crisis in Chunyang Palace. It was estimated that those who left had already thought it through. They would either use an equivalent exchange method to get Zhanxian's pill recipe, or they would honestly hire Zhanxian to refine pills. Otherwise, it was basically impossible to get the complete pill recipe. Apart from anything else, Chunyang Palace would be the first to disagree. Why should they let you obtain the sect's secret recipe? If those people wanted to use this method today, they would have to fall out with Chunyang Palace. Fortunately, Yang Chen handled it appropriately, and such a thing did not happen. If they really fell out with each other, there would be corpses strewn everywhere. For Yang Chen, it was just a way to restore the pill spirit. It was not something that was worthy of being treasured, but it was also good for Yang Chen to be able to exchange more fire seeds. After all, in addition to upgrading the profound spirit furnace, Yang Chen was also a fire cultivator. The more fire seeds he was exposed to, the greater the benefits would be. Now there were at least 3 kinds of fire seeds that Yang Chen had retained: the Nanmingli fire left by the scar, the Sun True fire that had been absorbed by the profound spirit furnace, and the pure Yang True fire. However, no matter which one, it was not what Yang Chen could absorb now. He could only look at it and sigh. However, this time it also reminded Yang Chen that the Nanmingli fire could not be absorbed by himself, but the profound spirit furnace could absorb it. It could just upgrade a grade, and it could also keep the Nanmingli fire better. The flying sword that Gao Yu refined had reached the stage where it was about to come out of the furnace. After Wang Yong heard about it, he personally rushed over and refined it with Gao Yu. For Yang Chen's flying sword, the master and apprentice had racked their brains, and there was a posture of refining this flying sword into Yang Chen's life source flying sword. Even the good materials in Yang Chen's hands were plundered by them. This flying sword had now been the talk of most people in Chunyang Palace. Many people were envious of Yang Chen's good luck. He had such a powerful master and master ancestor in refining, and at the same time, they worked hard to refine it for him. Some people disagreed. A flying sword used by a disciple in the foundation stage, it was just a little perfunctory. Why did they have to make such a big fuss? If the master of the palace rewarded them again in the future, what should others do? For this kind of person's mind, whether it was Gao Yu, Wang Yong, or Yang Chen, they did not put it in their eyes. The master refined a good flying sword for his own apprentice. How could there be so many excuses? Because of the addition of Wang Yong, it seemed that Yang Chen still needed to wait for a few more months for the flying sword. How could Yang Chen not be happy? He didn't know how happy he was hiding in the 9 Earth Mountain Villa. After guiding the outer sect disciples again, he finally decided to take advantage of the waiting time to absorb the Nanmingli fire with the profound spirit furnace. The Nanmingli fire was a fire seed at the same level as the true sun fire. It was powerful. Whether it was the Nanmingli fire sword or the Nanmingli fire armor, they were very overbearing magic weapons. But now, the Nanmingli fire would also become a kind of fire seed absorbed by the profound spirit furnace. The process of absorption was slightly more complicated than that of the true sun fire. After all, Yang Chen had the true sun fire in his previous life and was very familiar with the fire, but this life was the first time he had a close contact with the Nanmingli fire. It was necessary to be careful. It was still the same procedure, controlling the profound spirit furnace to absorb the fire seed of the Nanmingli fire. The profound spirit furnace that had already absorbed the true sun fire was already enough to withstand the power of the Nanmingli fire, so that Yang Chen's initial worries disappeared. Of course, Yang Chen would not forget to use the Xianxian crystal profound gold to absorb the power of the Nanmingli fire, so that the profound spirit furnace could safely absorb the Nanmingli fire. And in the process of absorption, Yang Chen could also take the opportunity to use the refining technique to make up for some of the small defects in the profound spirit furnace with the Xianxian crystal profound gold. So far, about 1/10 of the amount of the Xianxian crystal profound gold has been integrated into the profound spirit furnace. This time, Yang Chen probably added about 1/10 of the remaining amount. The entire furnace body seemed to be filled with the Xianxian crystal profound gold, showing a faint blue color. At first glance, it was a high-quality thing. After a full 3 months, the fire seeds of the Nanmingli fire were completely absorbed into the profound spirit furnace by Yang Chen. And this also meant that the profound spirit furnace had another famous flame in the world, and the quality had been greatly improved. At the same time, this also meant that Yang Chen could refine more advanced medicinal pills. Of course, this higher level did not refer to the transformation of the 3rd grade into the 4th grade, But some of the medicinal pills that could not be refined by Yang Chen's strength and flame in the past could also be refined. For example, the Yin-Yang Good Fortune pill, which could increase the probability of the foundation stage cultivator condensing the pill. Similar to the foundation establishment pill, it was a powerful medicinal pill for the peak foundation stage cultivator. It was almost a good thing that many foundation stage cultivators wanted to snatch. Perhaps, after a period of time, Yang Chen could consider refining the Yin-Yang Good Fortune pill. He believed that many people in the Chunyang Palace would like it. Chapter 354. However, compared with alchemy, Yang Chen was now looking forward to two things. One was waiting for Gao Yu and Wang Yong to refine the flying sword for himself, and the second was still the idea of Nanming Li Fire. Nanming Li Fire also belonged to the third fire lineage, which was the same as the 5 elements of Yin and Yang of the true sun fire. Different fire seeds could be merged with each other. Although Yang Chen has not really absorbed the true sun fire and Nanming Li Fire into his body, the third fire spirit power could be burned by Nanming Li Fire, with a little aura of Nanming Li Fire. Similarly, Yang Chen had done this once on the true sun fire. The direct result of that time was the rapid foundation of the third fire spirit power. Now that Yang Chen had built the foundation, although it might not have such an effect, it was extremely good for the tempering of his spirit power. Yang Chen had been waiting until this time to do this. Instead of waiting for the outbreak of the demonic arts, he was waiting for himself to fully consolidate the realm and then break through the obstacles when he reached the bottleneck. The third fire spirit power that had been tempered by the true sun fire, after experiencing the same pain but still tolerable Nanming Li Fire, the overall quality did not improve much. After all, it was a fire seed of the same grade. However, another benefit was what Yang Chen had been looking forward to. Just as the true sun fire condensed in the sea of consciousness, Nanming Li Fire also condensed a group of phantoms in Yang Chen's sea of consciousness, with a trace of golden bright flame burning, directly occupying a corner above the 5th earth layer, forming a beautiful triangle with the true sun fire in the sky and the earth core fire in the ground. The spiritual awareness that had been reduced because of saving Gao Yu and the spiritual awareness double cultivation seemed to have begun to condense madly at this moment, as if there were signs of a breakthrough. Even the sea of consciousness itself began to undergo some subtle changes. The framework of the overall sea of consciousness became more and more solid, as if it was being tamped by a huge rammer. The sea of consciousness itself also returned to the size before the treatment of Gao Yu. However, what surprised Yang Chen was that his spiritual awareness did not directly break through the peak Zhedan stage and enter the early Yuaning stage, but it was more consolidated in this realm. His spiritual awareness was only getting more condensed and not improved. Yang Chen was a little disappointed, but the changes in his spiritual power cultivation base made him surprised again. After the refining and burning of Nanming Li Fire, the third fire spirit power finally broke through the bottleneck of the second layer of the foundation stage and entered the realm of the third layer of the foundation stage. Because of the mutual promotion and restraint of the 5 elements, the improvement of the third fire spirit power directly led to the improvement of other spirit powers. Just like what happened during the last foundation stage, in addition to the second wood spirit power and the third fire spirit power, the remaining 8 spirit powers were also like dominoes. A series of reactions occurred and began to improve wildly. In the midst of Yang Chen's smile, Yang Chen's Yin-Yang 5 elements secret art finally completed the overall promotion from the second layer of the foundation stage to the third layer of the foundation stage, and truly and thoroughly entered the realm of the third layer of the foundation stage. It took another 2 months to complete all this. What made Yang Chen anxious was that his master and master ancestor had not yet completed the refining of the flying sword. This made Yang Chen both look forward to it and nervous. He was looking forward to the reappearance of the warm scene in his previous life. He was nervous because he was afraid that because of his rebirth, things had changed a lot, and that scene would never appear again. Before this time, Yang Chen comforted himself with the fact that Lin Chang and the old devil died under his own sword. Even in such a forest, Chang he could find the way out. Presumably the bright ray sword would also appear. In Yang Chen's restless mood, after waiting anxiously for 3 months, Xianxian finally waited for the news that Gao Yu and Wang Yong had finished their work. He didn't care about anything else, and directly flew back to the Fierce Sun Courtyard from the Nine Earth Mountain Villa. When he arrived at Fierce Sun Courtyard, Yang Chen was a little scared. He slowly walked up to Gao Yu's small courtyard and gently knocked on the door. When he heard his master's gentle voice for him to come in, he walked in uneasily. Gao Yu was alone. Grandmaster Wang Yong had already left, and was probably preparing to refine his Qilin Horn Life flying sword. When Yang Chen came in, Gao Yu didn't get up. She just sat at the stone table under the tree in her courtyard and drank tea. At that moment, Yang Chen didn't know what to say. Asking Shifu for the flying sword would make him seem a little too impatient. But it was also a little awkward to say or do nothing. It was very rare for Yang Chen to be a little embarrassed in front of Shifu. You heard that the flying sword has been refined, right? It was rare to see Yang Chen like this. Gao Yu was a little surprised, but at the same time she thought it was funny. At that moment, Yang Chen was like a child who had never grown up. Shifu. Yang Chen didn't deny it, nor did he want to deny it. He just looked at Gao Yu eagerly. Gao Yu put down the teacup and glanced at Yang Chen with a smile that wasn't a smile. She then reached out and wiped the opening of her Qianquan bag. Yang Chen's heart directly clenched, and he was so nervous that he didn't even dare breathe. The situation that he couldn't forget even before he died might appear in front of him soon, or maybe it wouldn't. This was what made Yang Chen so nervous. A dark red flying sword appeared on Gao Yu's slender jade hand. Gao Yu pinched the body of the flying sword with only 2 fingers, turned the hilt upside down, and handed it over to Yang Chen. Yang Chen, this bright ray sword was specially refined by me for you. You take it and practice diligently. Shifu's voice seemed to float from the sky, so beautiful. What did the flying sword look like? Yang Chen couldn't see it at all. The scene that he had been thinking about finally appeared in front of Yang Chen again. At this moment, even if Gao Yu handed over a branch, Yang Chen would accept it as a treasure. What's more, this flying sword was really a magic weapon that his Shifu had spent several years to refine for him after experiencing a life and death adventure. There was a thick mist in his eyes in an instant, and then it quickly turned into tears, overflowed the eyes, and flowed on Yang Chen's face. Yang Chen's mouth just choked and said, Shifu, and then he couldn't speak anymore. Decades of expectation, finally in exchange for this moment to reappear. For this scene, Yang Chen was willing to pay more. His hands didn't know when he had grabbed the flying sword, but he didn't pay attention to where he grabbed. The blade of the flying sword had already cut a long cut on Yang Chen's hand, and blood flowed. But Yang Chen didn't seem to feel it. He was just like a fool, holding the flying sword, and his face was full of tears. It turned out that when he was happy to the extreme, there would be tears. Chapter 355. Gao Yu couldn't figure out why Yang Chen had such a big reaction. Although this was the second time such a similar situation had occurred, the first time was when Yang Chen was apprenticed. In Gao Yu's imagination, at most, Yang Chen was excited because this flying sword was very good, but Yang Chen just grabbed the flying sword, and didn't even look at it. He kept his head down and cried. Fortunately, Yang Chen's gaffe did not last long. After a while, he was awakened by the pain caused by the sword blade. In the face of his master's tears again, Yang Chen was quite embarrassed. Finally, with the help of Gao Yu, Yang Chen's hand was cured. At this time, Yang Chen was able to carefully observe the appearance of the bright ray sword that Gao Yu and Wang Yong had jointly refined for him. The whole bright ray sword was about 5 feet long, with a beautiful silver handguard, and a long double-sided sword blade, which was exceptionally sharp. The dark red sword was covered with runes. Holding it in his hand, there was a burning feeling. Yang Chen was not polite, and directly in front of Gao Yu, he first branded his own spiritual awareness imprint on it. This was the flying sword that was given to him, and it was justifiable. After marking it, Yang Chen began to input his spiritual power to test the power of the flying sword. Boom, an invisible flame rose from the sword, and the dark golden flame made people feel a burning pain when they looked at it. He took out a piece of hard metal and threw it in the air. The long blade gently waved, and the metal was divided into 2 pieces out of thin air, and the incision was as smooth as a mirror. In an instant, the two pieces of metal turned into two groups of melted liquid and dripped to the ground. One could imagine the power of the dark golden flame. Perfect! Xianxian could put his magic weapon in his sea of consciousness at any time and anywhere, but even though he had magnified it many times, he did not see any obvious flaws. The only flaw was not in the refining technique, but the problem of the material. From the design to the refining, this bright ray sword could be called perfect. Don't you know who did it and how much time it took? Xianxian's evaluation made Gao Yu's face full of smiles, and she was not polite at all. This uses the red sun iron spirit as the main material and adds a lot of high-level materials. It can be used as a life-flying sword to cultivate, and it can be continuously upgraded in the future. The masterpiece of Gao Yu and Wang Yong, the two refining masters, would naturally not be an ordinary magic weapon. Gao Yu was quite confident about this. Even asking Xianxian to treat it as a natal magic treasure was sincere. He had originally intended to make it into a natal magic treasure from the beginning. Of course, it was not practical to refine it now. He would have to wait until he reached the nascent soul stage before he could start. However, despite being proud, Gao Yu did not forget herself and pointed it out to Xianxian. Strictly speaking, the bright ray sword can only be regarded as a sword embryo, not a complete flying sword. However, how to refine it in the future is your business. The master leads the way, but the cultivation depends on the individual. Now what Gao Yu said was what it was. How could Xianxian have the possibility to refute it? Gao Yu said a sentence, and Xianxian nodded his head, as obedient as a grandson. Looking at Xianxian's current appearance, Gao Yu did not have the mood to boast anymore. She stretched out her hand, and her slender jade hand stretched out in front of Xianxian. Give it. What? Xianxian was stunned and asked hurriedly. You promised me to find a water attribute cultivation method for me. Gao Yu looked at Xianxian's doubts and said with a smile, You promised to find a water attribute cultivation method for me to show you. It was another surprise. Xianxian almost quickly took out the cultivation method that he had already selected, from the foundation to the advanced cultivation method, and even a large bottle of water attribute elixir, so that Gao Yu could increase her cultivation. These things, I don't need them for the time being. Gao Yu looked at the elixir and frowned. Didn't you say that haste makes waste? It's not a good thing to rely on external things, right? Master is right. Xianxian hurriedly took back those things. Anyway, Gao Yu now had the spiritual awareness of the peak Jidan stage, and the aptitude of the water attribute full spirit root. If she used it to cultivate the water attribute cultivation method of the Qi refining stage, she didn't know how fast her cultivation speed would be. It was estimated that it could scare people. This elixir was really useless. But go back and be your disciple. Gao Yu waved her hand at Xianxian and motioned him to leave. If I have any questions in my cultivation, I will ask you, the disciple. Xianxian didn't know how to answer the words, and he walked out dejectedly. Gao Yu watched the back of Xianxian's departure, thinking of the moment when Xianxian just got the bright ray sword. Her heart was also warm. However, Gao Yu was a little afraid that she would be more and more willing to stay with her disciple, so she just quickly drove away Xianxian. She just didn't know that this time she drove away Xianxian, and the next time she drove away Xianxian, but could the Xianxian in her heart also be driven away in the same way? Xianxian didn't notice the abnormality of Gao Yu at all. In his heart, he was still warm and happy by the scene of getting the bright ray sword. He even felt that his whole person was floating, and he didn't know what was going on. The joy in his heart was like the blood demon vine that had taken root and germinated and grew wildly. That kind of carefree and happy, he simply didn't know what to use to describe it. On the way from the fierce sun courtyard to the 9 Earth Mountain Villa, Xianxian didn't even use the flying sword, but walked all the way. Holding the bright ray sword in his hand, Xianxian was not willing to put it down, nor was he willing to put it in the Qianquan bag. He just held it tightly, as if he was holding a treasure comparable to the Jade Emperor's imperial jade seal. At this time, even if someone used Lu Dongbin's pure yang sword to exchange, Xianxian would not agree. He didn't know how long he had been walking, but Xianxian had been in this state of ecstasy. Even when he found that there were people around and questioned, he was full of smiles. Who is it? Junior brother Yang can still find me in this situation. You have a way. With Yang Chen's question, a person immediately appeared in front of Yang Chen. Guang Ning, a disciple of the Bright Moon Hall, stared at the flying sword in Yang Chen's hand and asked with a smile, "In your hand, you are holding the flying sword that Gao Yu Wang Yong refined for you, right? It just so happens that I don't have a suitable flying sword. I wonder if junior brother Yang is willing to part with it?" Senior brother Guang, you are of the water attribute. What is the use of the bright ray sword? Looking at Guang Ning, who suddenly appeared in front of him, Yang Chen sneered in his heart. However, Yang Chen's mood was too good. Seeing that Guang Ning had already stood up, he couldn't help but say, "I am in a good mood today. Senior brother Guang, don't you lack a flying sword? I will give you a water attribute one." Chapter 356. Junior brother Yang, this senior brother has taken a fancy to the one in your hand. Guang Ning sneered as he took 2 steps forward and said eerily, "Junior Yang, you should give it to me." Yang Chen didn't know what to say about Guang Ning's reckless behavior. Maybe it was because Gao Yu and Wang Yong had forged this brilliant ray sword. That's why even the Bright Moon Palace's water attribute people wanted it. An unforgettable scene happened in front of him. Yang Chen's mood was really good. He was so good that he didn't want anyone to disturb him. Even if he had to pay the price of a flying sword, it didn't matter. Yang Chen had plenty of flying swords in his sword box anyway. However, Guang Ning in front of him didn't know that he was wantonly destroying Yang Chen's good mood. What he had to face was perhaps Yang Chen, who had changed from happiness to anger. You've just built your foundation not long ago and your master has forged such a high-grade flying sword for you. Guang Ning's face was filled with jealousy. You're just a foundation-building initial stage disciple. It's useless for you to have such a good flying sword. You should just help me. Senior Guang, you're a water attribute cultivator. How can you use a fire attribute flying sword? Yang Chen sneered as anger started to accumulate in his heart. I can't use it, but I can exchange it with someone else for a water attribute flying sword of the same grade. Guang Ning acted as if it was the right thing to do. He said shamelessly, Junior Yang, I'll help you spread the reputation of being selfless in the sect. Are you sure you don't want the flying sword that I gave you, but my brilliant ray sword? Yang Chen's eyes were already bursting with light, but he still wanted to confirm it. Of course. Guang Ning nodded arrogantly. Don't think that you can be so presumptuous in front of me just because you've challenged Li Qingchen. If you anger me, I don't mind letting you know how powerful I am. You dare to speak like this, it's because of the 7 people around you, right? Yang Chen sneered and called out Guang Ning's arrangement. Haha, kid, you're quite the vigilant one. You actually discovered us. Following an impudent laughter, 7 masked fellows appeared around Yang Chen. Every one of them was at the foundation establishment stage. The weakest one was at the middle stage of foundation establishment, while the strongest one was at the peak of foundation establishment. The others, including Guang Ning, were all at the late stage of foundation establishment. If you know what's good for you, obediently hand over your radiant sword. Guang Ning grinned as he took a step forward. Otherwise, don't blame us for being impolite. I'm in a good mood today. I don't want to kill anyone. How could Yang Chen care about Guang Ning's threat? He sneered and said, take your shameful friends and leave now. I can pretend that nothing has happened. Yang Chen really didn't want to use blood to ruin his good mood. Therefore, he gave Guang Ning a way out. Listening to Yang Chen's words, Guang Ning and the others looked at each other as if they saw something funny. Suddenly, they burst into laughter. A mere foundation establishment stage brat. Who do you think you are? You just happened to kill Demon Lin. Do you think that you're invincible? A masked guy couldn't help but ridicule, causing a few people to burst into laughter again. There's a path to heaven, but you don't want to walk. There's no door to hell. Yang Chen's eyes lit up. Facing these guys who were courting death, Yang Chen wouldn't tolerate it for long. Since they couldn't come to an agreement, then he was ready to make a move. Every injustice has its perpetrator. Since you guys have ideas about the Radiant Sword, Then don't blame me for being ruthless and killing. The radiant sword shook and disappeared from Yang Chen's hands. The radiant sword that gave him such a wonderful feeling was, of course, kept properly in the merit ring. He didn't want these people to tarnish the radiant sword. They didn't deserve it. The blood phantom vine flying sword flew out of Yang Chen's body without anyone noticing. Like a black dragon, it instantly passed through the throat of the guy who laughed the loudest on the opposite side, but it did not leave a trace of blood. The laughter came to an abrupt end. The flying sword of several people had just been launched. 2 guys had been pierced by Yang Chen's flying sword. The black light and shadow, like a ghost, flew toward the guy at the peak of the foundation stage. The other party saw that the situation was not good, and a small shield quickly appeared in his hand. It was dangerously blocked on the tip of the blood phantom vine flying sword. Just when he thought he had succeeded and just showed a little smile on his face, he was shocked to find that the blood demon vine flying sword did not even hesitate for a moment. It directly penetrated the palm of his hand with the shield, and then directly into his heart. Maintaining the posture of stretching out his hand to block the flying sword with the shield, the guy with the most powerful cultivation among them, in the eyes of the crowd, slowly fell down. He did not close his eyes until he died. Others were shocked. 3 people died in a face-to-face encounter, including the most powerful one among them. Where would they dare to have the pride of a group of people who just came out and laughed wildly? One by one, they could not wait for their parents to give them more legs. They madly fled in several directions around them. Fortunately, they were still experienced and knew that there was no chance to run in a group. Unfortunately, they were facing Yang Chen. When Yang Chen's cultivation was promoted to the 3rd level of the foundation stage, he could already use a skill that Yang Chen had never had the opportunity to use before, Myriad Sword Secret Art. More than a dozen blue flying swords emerged from Yang Chen's body like fish, and then instantly turned into countless streamers, flying toward the guys who were running around. The guys who only cared about running for their lives did not care about what technique Yang Chen used. They only thought about dodging Yang Chen's attack and then escaping without a trace. Each of them cursed Guang Ning countless times in their hearts. He actually dared to provoke such a powerful monster, and even dragged them down with him. Unfortunately, there was no medicine for regret in this world. Facing Yang Chen's absolute strength, the 4 masked guys who were already scared out of their wits did not even have the strength to resist. They were pierced by a few flying swords and fell down while screaming. The only one who survived, Guang Ning, was purposely left alive by Yang Chen. More than a dozen flying swords formed a small cage, tightly sealing him in a small space, not daring to move at all. "Junior Yang, please spare me." Guang Ning saw that Yang Chen did not make a move and seemed to have a little hope of surviving, so he hurriedly begged for mercy. "Senior Guang, what do you think of these flying swords?" Yang Chen stood in front of Guang Ning and suddenly asked. You already have so many flying swords that are better than the brilliant ray sword, why do you still want that broken sword?" Of course, Guang Ning saw the blue flying swords flying around him. Every one of them was a water attribute flying sword, which made Guang Ning jealous to death. "I said I would give you one, but you insisted on taking the brilliant ray sword." Yang Chen cursed with hatred. "Remember, my master gave me the brilliant ray sword, not some broken sword." After saying that, more than a dozen flying swords flew up and pierced Guang Ning's body. Chapter 357. No one would know Guang Ning's regret when he died. If he knew that the flying sword that Yang Chen promised to give him was of a higher grade than the bright ray sword, why did he have to be a villain and put his life on the line? Yang Chen was even more upset. His good mood was destroyed, and he had to deal with a series of finishing things, which was very annoying. There was a rule in the Chunyang Palace that one should not kill each other, but it never said that one could not protect themselves. Guang Ning brought 7 masked guys to kill Yang Chen, and Yang Chen certainly would not let him go. Moreover, with Yang Chen's current weight in front of the palace master of Chunyang Palace, if he said that Guang Ning wanted to murder him, the palace master would never believe it. Soon, the palace master and hall master Meng Xian of the law enforcement hall came here with people. They rushed over after receiving a notice from Yang Chen. Yang Chen quickly explained the course of the matter, and the identity of those masked people was also confirmed. They were a few rogue cultivators who often moved in the Meiqing mountain range, and they did have a deep personal relationship with Guangning. Not to mention, this area was between the Liang courtyard and the Jiurong mountain villa, which belonged to the inner mountain gate of the Chunyang Palace. Under normal circumstances, rogue cultivators did not dare to come here at will. Those people appearing here were suspicious in itself. The people of the law enforcement hall quickly got the identity of these guys from the rogue cultivators in the Meiqing mountain. The 7 people were not all, and there were a few who had a lower cultivation base and did not come in the way. Hall Master Meng Xian personally came out, and the momentum of a master of the Yuanying stage immediately made those guys not dare to have any thoughts, and they obediently said what they knew. According to them, it was Guangning who pulled them to rob a new flying sword. It was said that the flying sword was of a high grade, and the owner of the flying sword was only in the early stage of the foundation stage, which was very easy to deal with. Moreover, that guy wasn't on good terms with Guangning. Guangning wanted to use this opportunity to teach him a lesson. It would be best if he could make him unable to raise his head in the sect. These situations were quickly grasped by Hall Master Meng Xian, and then Palace Master Zhang Jiao also knew about it. On the other hand, Yang Chen was innocent. Since when did he go against Guangning? No matter if it was his previous life or this life, he didn't seem to have offended Guangning, right? Guangning is Song Xing's disciple. Seeing that Yang Chen still didn't understand, Meng Xian directly revealed Guangning's other identity. Hearing that it was Song Xing's disciple, Yang Chen immediately understood. While Liang Xiaoming was in solitary confinement, the substitute hall master of the Bright Moon Hall, Song Xing, had once grabbed hold of Yang Chen and wanted to punish Yang Chen for abandoning his post without permission and misleading the disciples. However, he failed in the end and was instead laughed at by the hall masters and hall masters. That was when the enmity was formed. Stand up for master? Or to snatch a good flying sword for yourself? Yang Chen was very disdainful of these guys who were inside the sect, but always wanted to suppress their opponents, regardless of the overall situation. No matter what his purpose is, he is an idiot. Meng Xian waved his hand and the matter had already been set. Guangning, the disciple of the Bright Moon Hall, colluded with outsiders and schemed against the disciples of his own sect. This had already violated the rules of the sect. Colluding with outsiders and harming his fellow disciples, even if Yang Chen didn't kill him, the sect rules would kill him. Although Guangning himself had been killed by Yang Chen, his master Song Xing couldn't escape. This crime of not recognizing people was also put on his head, and he also had to face the wall for 10 years. Fortunately, at this time, Liang Xiaoming had come out to preside over the Bright Moon Hall. Otherwise, the hall master of the Bright Moon Hall would face the wall together with the hall master. Liang Xiaoming, if you can't restrain your disciple of the Bright Moon Hall, then change someone else to be the hall master. There were several incidents in a row, and all of them were the disciples of the Bright Moon Hall, and they were all aimed at Yang Chen. How could the palace master not be angry? The anger directly burned on the head of Liang Xiaoming, the hall master of the Bright Moon Hall. In addition, if the people of your Bright Moon Hall don't even have self-awareness, you are too incompetent as a hall master. Yang Chen could kill Li Qingchen, who was at the peak of the foundation stage, in a life and death challenge. This had already explained a lot of problems. Why did Guangning still rush up like a fool? Did he really think that a few guys could outnumber him? Not only did his attitude have a problem, even his ability had a problem, and he didn't have self-awareness. How could the palace master not have any opinion? Naturally, he would vent his anger on Liang Xiaoming. The matter of being attacked halfway was quickly calmed down. After all, this was a family scandal. Although the palace master was angry, there was no reason to publicize it. Yang Chen was finally able to return to the 9 Earth Mountain Villa with peace of mind, carefully tasting the flying sword that his master and master ancestor had spent a few years refining. The bright ray sword did take a lot of Gao Yu's thoughts. From the beginning, it was to be able to be the life source flying sword. This refining, like the previous Blood Phantom Vine flying sword, was just a delicate sword embryo. Next, Xianxian was needed to complete the final steps of refining. After all, Gaoyu Wangyong was only refining. The real master was still Xianxian. If he wanted to use it as the life source flying sword, Xianxian must make great efforts to refine it and unite his mind. It was worthy of being a master of refining. The overall attribute of the bright ray sword was the third fire attribute. All the materials were third fire attribute materials. The refining technique was very exquisite. Except for some deficiencies in the materials, there were almost no flaws. After a few simple refining, Xianxian could completely turn the bright ray sword into his own flying sword. At the beginning of the refining, Gaoyu thought about the possible upgrade in the future. The effort in this area occupied more than half of the time of refining the flying sword. As long as Xianxian could find more advanced materials than the Red Sun Iron Spirit, he could integrate them into the flying sword at any time to improve the grade of the flying sword. Not long ago, Xianxian had the second wood flying sword, and now even the third fire flying sword was also in his hands. For Xianxian, the bright ray sword had a special meaning. Even if the refining was not satisfactory, like in his previous life, Xianxian would also regard it as a treasure. What's more, now the bright ray sword had the potential to improve infinitely. Without thinking about it, Xianxian decided that the second sword soul of his immortal beheading blade must be the bright ray sword. Perhaps the problem that Xianxian would face in the future was that when he had the opportunity to improve the grade of the bright ray sword, would Xianxian be willing to destroy the integrity of the bright ray sword that was completely refined by Gaoyu? In any case, the unforgettable memory was revisited once again. The flying sword, which was still named the bright ray sword, was also in his hands. Another wish of Xianxian had been completed. Next, it seemed that he should manage it well and send his master to the throne of the fierce Sun Hall Master. Here, Xianxian planned his future path. In the outside world, some changes were also taking place quietly. Chapter 358. The heaven-seizing pill on Elder Wu Xiong's body showed an extremely powerful effect, so that many masters of the Dashang stage were thinking about it. The major sects also began to intentionally or unintentionally collect the medicinal materials needed to refine the heaven-seizing pill. Of course, the main thing was still the best quality green jade Ganoderma. As long as the main material was available, the others were not a problem. Several alchemists in the Yuanying stage, who collectively refined the heaven-seizing pill, also let many people see hope. The heaven-seizing pill was no longer so unreachable, it seemed that it was easy to get. Several alchemists who had participated in the refining of the heaven-seizing pill, Deng Ya, Zhu Peng and Helian Yun, became the most sought-after fragrant cakes. Whether it was the news obtained from other channels or the confirmation obtained from Xianxian's mouth, it showed that the three were the real main force of refining the heaven-seizing pill. For a time, the masters who wanted to invite the three people almost lined up like a long dragon. Soon those masters discovered that among the three alchemists in the Yuanying stage, Helian Yun, for some reason, had fallen to the Jedon stage. In the refining of the heaven-seizing pill, what was the use of the Jedon stage alchemist? Even the Yuanying stage masters needed at least 3 people to work together. A trivial Jedon stage alchemist was simply useless. It was estimated that at most, they could do the work that Xianxian did at the time, refining the medicinal materials and assisting him. It was even possible that even Xianxian would not be able to play a role, such as refining the medicinal pill to restore the pill spirit, and it could not conflict with the heaven-seizing pill itself. Especially the last point. If it was not really a thorough understanding of the various medicinal effects, and even a certain understanding of the heaven-seizing pill, it was impossible to do it. So far, there has been no Dashang stage alchemist for the time being, which also means that in a long period of time, if someone wants to refine the heaven-seizing pill, they can only follow the old path of Elder Wu Xiong and use several Yuanying stage alchemists to work together to carry it out. This also meant that it was simply impossible to rely on alchemists to subdue the pill spirit of the Dashang stage. The only way was to use the old method that had already succeeded once, to find a way to consume the essence of the pill spirit, and when the pill was formed, the pill spirit would be restored. Although the heaven-seizing pill concocted this way had some inherent shortcomings, it had a greater advantage. It was able to feel the power of the wind tribulation in advance, which would give him more confidence in the future tribulation. In that case, Deng Ya was important, Zhu Peng was important, and Xianxian was important. On the contrary, Helian Yun, who had participated in it before, was not that important. After all, there were 3 people involved in the refining process, and Xianxian was irreplaceable. After discovering this, how could Helian Yun, who had already obtained the lunar true fire but had yet to absorb and refine it, endure the taste of being looked down upon? The originally high and mighty Yuaning stage alchemist, who people would flatter like stars around the moon, had become an insignificant pawn. Even a junior in the foundation establishment stage was valued more than him. If this happened to other people, he didn't know what others would think, but at least He Lianyun couldn't bear this. What made He Lianyun hate the most was that his true sunfire was lost because of Yangqin. This also made him hate Yangqin very much. It was just that Wu Xiong had not ascended in the past few years. Even if He Lianyun's heart was full of resentment, he did not dare to show it. Now that Wu Xiong had ascended, He Lianyun could finally hold his head up high. But soon He Lianyun sadly discovered that Elder Wu Xiong's ascension did not mean that Yang Chen had no one to protect him. On the contrary, Elder Hua Wanting of the Blue Cloud sect had already expressed her optimism for Yang Chen and owed Yang Chen a favor. Even Chunyang Palace, which had never been put in his eyes before, now had a master of the Deshang stage. Even without these, Yang Chen promised in public that he could refine the medicinal pill to restore the pill spirit for everyone, which had already endorsed his own safety. Only Yang Chen knew what to do. How could those who wanted to refine the heaven-seizing pill allow He Lianyun to touch Yang Chen's hair? Therefore, although He Lianyun hated Yang Chen to the bone, He Lianyun did not dare to show the slightest difference. Instead, he praised Yang Chen insincerely in front of people. He Lianyun was a villain, but he was also a smart person. The words that Yang Chen said in Chunyang Palace quickly reached He Lianyun's ears. Combined with the problems in the refining process, He Lianyun immediately found that what Yang Chen said was very reasonable. Although what Yang Chen said at the time was to restore the pill spirit, it could be applied to the heaven-seizing pill itself. The half of the pill recipe left by Xianxia was not that he did not want to be complete, but he had no way to make it complete at all. Xianxia only tried one kind of pill spirit, and Xianxia must have thought of this problem. He didn't know what kind of changes there would be in changing the pill spirit and what kind of adjustments were needed. How could he perfect the pill recipe? Yang Chen's last move seemed to be understated, just to restore the pill spirit, but all the medicinal materials used could not conflict with the heaven-seizing pill itself, and they could be perfectly integrated. This meant that Yang Chen could at least solve the different problems of the pill spirit in the early stage of the refining. This discovery made He Lianyun surprised and happy. He was surprised that Yang Chen, a younger generation junior, knew so much at such a young age, even more than him, a Yuanying stage predecessor. He was happy that from the recent movements of Deng Ya and Zhu Peng, they did not seem to realize this. Even Yang Chen himself, it was estimated that he did not realize it, otherwise he would not say it on the spot. This secret was exclusively owned by He Lianyun. If he could grasp this secret in his own hands, what would it be like? As soon as this thought arose, He Lianyun could no longer dispel it. He could even imagine the glory he would have when he reached that point. However, if he wanted to gently get this secret from Yang Chen's mouth, He Lianyun did not have this ability. Not to mention that he could not come up with a 7th grade fire seed. Even if he could, how could he, a fire cultivator, be willing to exchange such a precious thing? Provoke other forces to fall out with Chunyang Palace? If he didn't tell this secret, it was estimated that no one would do such a thankless thing. Moreover, there was no justifiable reason to fall out with Chunyang Palace, and it was morally untenable. No one from any force was a fool and would be manipulated by He Lianyun. After thinking about it, He Lianyun did not have a proper way to get the secret of Yang Chen. Now there was a lack of a reasonable name, a justifiable excuse. Suddenly He Lianyun thought of a family. Xianxia, who first created the heaven-seizing pill, was from the Xiang family. If they came forward, It would absolutely be justifiable, right? Welcome to Immortal Cultivation Audiobooks, your gateway to the mystical world of Xianxia. Dive into legendary tales of martial arts, spiritual growth, and immortal ascension. Here, we bring you full-length English audiobooks of the best Wuxia and Xianxia stories, from young prodigies to ancient sect wars. Perfect for fans of Against the Gods, martial world, and tales of demons and gods.